Today I have Steph Cramer joining me.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you and speak with you today. Steph has many, many years of experience. She's worked on the agency side of recruiting and staffing. She's owned her own business. She's worked in-house leading large talent acquisition teams, and she's a Forbes HR Council member. So welcome.
That I am. Thank you so much for the introduction.
Sure. So to get started, tell us, how did you get into the people business?
Yeah, that's a good story. It is a circuitous path, I have to say. Um, as embarrassing as it is to admit, I got into the people business because my well thought out 20-year-old goals just really wanted to have a lot of money. So, I
Okay.
mean, what it boils down to is I didn't know who I was. I
Yeah.
didn't feel inspired or called to any one particular profession. I was a computer science major because it was around Y2K. Yes, I just
Wow.
aged myself. And I thought, well, that would ensure I'd be quote unquote, rolling in the dough.
Yeah. It's a big
Um,
transition from computer science to people.
yeah, for sure. It's a good question. So I did IT project management for a bit,
Okay.
and it was okay. It wasn't, inspiring, but I got a phone call one day from an individual at Kforce, which is a large staffing firm. And as you can imagine, I mean, my early 20-something-year-old self was lured by the mighty dollar, and I'm
Yep.
forever grateful. It was a great place to learn kind of like the psychology and how to work with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I resisted to go in house for a long time until one of my clients gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. And thank God, as time passes, maturity grows. And that true inspiration of connecting people success to company success really clicked. So being a strategic partner and thought leader around talent solutions is my jam. So now I'm the senior director of talent acquisition for Iron Bow Technologies. We're 1.5 billion when it comes to revenue. Yeah. And if our trajectory continues, we'll be doubling in the near future. So I'm excited to be here.
Wow,
Lots,
that's a huge
lots to do.
responsibility from the people wearing the people hat for that size of a company and organization, especially in the tech space. I mean, every
Yeah,
talent that you need, I'm sure.
yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to tackle. They've grown in a short amount of time, so the team itself is fantastic. Luckily, I don't need to worry about them not being able to deliver. They know exactly what they're doing, but just really having to dig into the systems, tools, and process to make sure that we truly can scale.
So, with our topic today of unlocking company culture to attract top talent, what's worked for you in the past when it comes to improving company culture when it comes to recruiting A players? Because A players know what companies have good cultures and what don't. So,
Sure.
what's worked for you in the past in that department?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pretend this is a tough one because improving company culture is a team sport. I mean,
Yes.
it's not something that can possibly fall on one function or one individual. It's
Mhm.
taking a step back. Anytime I've tried to really tackle this, I mean, it is imperative to have executive buy-in. If it's not coming from the top, there's no point.
Mhm.
Um, in fact, I worked for a firm that struggled with culture. It looked incredible on the surface, and I wanted so desperately for it to work. But I found that in TA, I was selling and marketing a employee value proposition that wasn't real.
Mm.
I'm sure others have found themselves in those situations.
Yeah,
We
that's
were, yeah, oh, it stunk. We were able to attract them, but retention was a real issue. Um, so if you do have the components of a good culture, you need to market the heck out of it.
yeah.
Employee sentiment, in my experience, goes a long way. Getting their voices out there. I'm a huge proponent of branding and recruitment marketing.
And that leads to my next question of how do we know if we're interviewing with, or we're a prospective candidate interviewing with companies, job searching actively, how do we know when companies actually value culture and they live it and they breathe it and they are it, or if it's just a
Yeah,
sales job to get me to come work there?
for sure. It's I was just in the candidate shoes, not, 2, 3 months ago, right? I just started with this firm, and yeah, you scratch your head, right? There's no crystal ball or you can't just snap your fingers and just know. Um,
Mhm.
so for me, it really takes, I call it almost being like an intelligence case officer.
Yes.
Um, you really have to take a holistic approach to figuring out how to make it work. So for me, I've done reverse referrals, or I'm sorry, reverse references. So
Mhm.
I reached out on LinkedIn to talk to people uh, who no longer work there, who did do work there, and just really figure out like you know their experience and what it's like. Um, I actually, not that I'm trying to promote a post that I did, but not too long ago, I posted my own interview prep guide. And people can go out to my LinkedIn profile and download it for free. But it was really trying to get just at that. It's trying to figure out like what questions do you need to ask the individual that you're interviewing with to really understand to understand what it's like. I've gone so far as to ask the interviewer for examples of how they invest into their employees, examples of employees being promoted. I ask how they go about implementing change. I ask when the last time they surveyed their employees, to find out what they thought and what did you do with the results. So yeah, there's not one easy answer for that. It's a holistic approach, trying to get a lot of different data points from a lot of different people.
I love that you said survey the employees because I think that's a new thing for companies and it is so valuable because you can't just assume that your employees like your culture because everyone's going to say the right things and do the right things to check the boxes to keep their jobs. But actually getting it on a surveys back is when you really, when rubber hits the road.
For sure. And I think where a lot of employers fall short is that they survey and then nothing's done with those surveys. Not even closing the communication loop, back to the employees. I mean, you see, as an employee, you see the link come across an email and you think, ugh, not another survey. And why is that? It's because they never affect change,
Yeah.
right? There's no transparency or context shared around what's being done. So, I advise firms that I'm with that, yeah, let's do a survey, but don't do it if you're not going to at least at a minimum close the communication loop, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you brought up the term reverse references too. That's something I've heard recently in the market and not prior to 2023, with recruiting. And I think, we've always had the tools as candidates that are looking, Glassdoor or Google or whatnot, but actually digging in and I mean, how did that look from like a process standpoint? Did you just reach out to the hiring managers or just connect via LinkedIn?
yeah,
You don't have to tell
yeah.
your
Well,
secret sauce, but I mean,
it's
I
so
think it's
funny.
brilliant.
Yeah, I think the first time I did it, gosh, it was probably 2018. And I'm like, I don't even know if this is a thing. I don't know if it has a name, but I just started doing research on LinkedIn. I'm like, who's worked here before? I'm, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm a friendly person, and hopefully
I
they
love that. It's
they don't
so
think I'm a
good.
weirdo.
No, it's so brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does top talent look like when it comes to company culture? Like, what do prospective candidates want to see, hear, do, feel as they're going through the interview process? Even to the point they get an offer extended. What are they looking for?
You know, I can't do gross generalizations. I mean, everyone is, unique unto themselves. But I consider myself top talent. And for me, I want an employer who's going to listen and who's going to invest into their employees. I am a firm believer in the fact that people success equals client success equals company success. So, what exactly do they look for in an employer or in a culture? It's the ability to succeed, right? Like everyone has goals or they should have goals. And even if you don't know what that 5-year goal is, I mean, gosh, the world changes so quickly. Like, it's probably wishful thinking, to know what I'm going to be doing in 5 years. But to at least know that, like, I know what my 6-month goal is, I know what my 12-month goal is, and I want to be challenged, and I want to grow, and I want to know that I have a fighting chance, right? Like, I've been with employers, and it all sounds great. I have these ideas, and I just, oh, sorry, fire engines. Hope you can't hear that. And so I have these goals and ideas, and I completely understand that I can't just walk into a place and be like, "All right, new sheriff in town, and I got some ideas, and we're going to make them happen," right? Like, I totally get the fact that you need to have operational buy-in and adoption, but top talent, I think, wants to just know that they have a fighting chance.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So the opposite of that, if I'm a prospective candidate, wanting to know about company's culture, what are some red flags that I should look for?
I think this is nuanced, right? It's reading in between the lines, and it's not an easy thing um, to just have a black and white response to. I think, again, it boils down to being able to ask for the examples, ask how decisions are made, and see how they respond, right? Like, if they're not able to easily answer those questions, why? They should be proud of being able to do these things, right? And yeah, I think it really just takes looking at their answers holistically, and putting the puzzle together. And I wish it wasn't a puzzle, but yeah, sadly it is.
If they don't have the answer, I feel like it's because, or they give a vague answer, it's because they don't have the answer. They
Yeah,
can't
exactly.
deliver concrete results to you. And
Exactly.
if that's the beginning of it, what do you,
Exactly. Well, I mean, I would, I would challenge an employer to say, okay, well, when you conduct the interviews and a candidate struggles providing an answer, that gives you a red flag.
oh,
You
definitely.
know? Yeah. Of course, people are nervous, right? So there's an element of that. I totally get. But if someone has confidence, and uh, they they've had some success, those stories should be at the ready. And I think we should be expecting our employers to be able to do the same.
Company culture is, there's so much weight in it now, I feel like these days. And it's so important to candidates, especially with Gen Z coming up through the market and, surpassing 25% of the market now. It's completely changed the landscape. Why does top talent value culture so much now versus maybe 5, 10 years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think, for better or for worse, I think the pandemic did some pretty incredible. I don't want to use. Well, that sounds positive, because I know there was so much hurt and heartache with the pandemic. But there were some silver linings, that came out of it. I think that top talent now can take a step back and have confidence to know that there are options, and with options comes confidence. And for me, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and
Yeah,
that's okay, right? I'm gonna truly thrive when I find my people, and that also means my quote unquote company, my employer, and they're out there. I think that the world of remote working has also opened up more opportunity. You're no longer confined by your geographic region,
mm-hmm.
and so employers now have to compete, at that scale. And so I just think there's more communication, more transparency, more opportunity, and you know, it is what it is. It's time to pony up.
That's right. It's time to step up in the culture department.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So you mentioned in the beginning of our episode about how you know the executive leadership has to have buy-in when it comes to company culture. But how does HR and talent acquisition contribute to being a part of enhancing company culture in their swim lanes?
Yeah. You know, for me, um, I, I I think it boils down to a strategic partnership that you have with executive leadership, and hopefully, one of those people, if not both, have a seat at the table. But being a strategic partner, a trusted advisor, this doesn't just happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to establish trust and rapport so that you can be heard, so that you can be, so that they listen.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to establish that, it takes time, it
Mm-hmm.
takes consistency, it takes follow through, it takes, you know, uh, doing what you say you're going to do, and coming to the table with, valuable solutions. Um, so how can HR and TA help support that? Yeah, it's advising, right? And
Mm-hmm.
being that conduit for, employees' voice, talent's voice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I answered your question directly, but uh, I think I
Yeah,
have.
no, you have, and then too, I mean, you've got to have the buy-in from the leadership and the executive team, and then as a dotted line, your hiring managers.
For
When
sure.
you're executing those strategies and implementing maybe new processes, um, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. From a hiring manager's perspective, I mean, it's almost like your HRBP, your talent advisors, that are partnered up with each individual unit. It may not be at the same strategic scale, but the same trusted advisor approach has to exist there as well, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I can't just expect day one to walk in and be like, all right, hiring manager, you've been doing this for 3 years, but I know how to do it better. That doesn't work. No, no one no one welcomes that approach, right? And so I try to be as consultative as I can, where I listen way more than I speak.
Mm,
Um,
that's great.
because I'm not able to solve problems if I don't know what I'm solving for.
Mm,
So slowing down, and I have a real strong bias to action. I struggle with that in a big way. So slowing down and listening, because I don't want to solve for the wrong problem. Yeah.
and how do you get your hiring managers to display or act or interview all the above, you know, this positive company culture or this, you know, path that the company culture is choosing to take? I mean, how do you get them on board with that when they're interviewing new candidates?
Yeah, I think it's baby steps, and I think success lies in, you know, small, tiny wins over time. This is to change something as monumental as culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just doesn't happen overnight, and so planting seeds. I should be the chief farmer because I plant seeds. My dad's a farmer. I grew up on a farm, so maybe it's full circle here. But it's constantly planting seeds, and giving them a solution that is easily applied, that they can just I make suggestions, hey, this is what has worked for me at past companies, not saying
Mm-hmm.
it's going to work for you, but should give it a try. See,
Mm-hmm.
see how it goes. And again, being able to kind of weave, the solution through all of those tiny wins, takes work, but it's worth it.
It does. And I love that you said about planting a seed because it's not, you can't just go to somebody and say, okay, these are the methods we're going to use to attract the best candidates representing our company culture. Okay, do it. That's not how it works.
No, no, and not one size fits all, right? We're all different people. I mean, you hear from a marketing perspective. Oh gosh, I'm going to totally butcher it because I'm not an official marketing person, but it's the A and the B studies, right? Like seeing what works here and what works there, and comparing to see what your results were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think we have to be constantly approaching these solutions with open eyes, open ears, and iterative learning, is what it's going to take.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up today, how can our listeners find you and follow you along?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Steph Cramer, just on my LinkedIn profile. I welcome everyone to connect. I try and engage as much as I possibly can, and I try and respond to everyone. I'm better at times than others, but yes, please go there.
Go follow along. I follow her. She engages with me. She engages. She's great. She has great things to say. So thank you again for your time, and we appreciate
Abs-
it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Caroline. This has
All
been
right.
wonderful.
See ya.
All right, bye bye.